I'm not sure. Also, I'm doing this late. I need to be going to bed. It's been a rough day. But before all that, and I guess let's get into why I decided to stream tonight and talk to you guys. Um, so I've done this a few times, and I've mentioned it here or there, here and there, a little bit. But I'm a queer person, to the point where I'm actually tagging my streams as such. Uh, you know, I have a bismuth shirt on. I think I've been pretty upfront about discovering bisexual stuff and exploring that a bit, and trying to not be ashamed of that, as I was for 27 years, 26, 27 years, which is why it has such a prevalent spot here in the background. Um, but another part of our background that has pretty prevalent spot is the trans flag. Um, it's been pretty fucking apparent for the past 2 years on here, and I've mentioned it a few times, coyly and all this. But yeah, I'm obvious trans. I go by Melody. It may be a bit confusing sometimes because sometimes I'll have people in stream that use the incorrect pronouns, or people in stream who know my former name that still use it in chat. For that, it's people pretty much that are not aware of changes. And, I don't fault them for it. I prefer people not use that old name, even though it is plastered all over this channel because I'm an idiot and used to use it on this channel a lot. But they don't know that I don't have any hate towards for lack of a better term, ignorance. Literally because they don't know. They are not aware. And as for the people in my streams playing games with me that use... So usually, I don't think... Other than like maybe a year ago in some of their streams, I don't think anyone's used the wrong name in a long time, but wrong pronouns keep happening all the damn time. And it's a problem that I've let those particular people know of several times, but it's not the biggest deal. Because, like, again, these are people that have known me since I was 0 years old and referred to me in a certain way for over 20 years, for nearly 30 years, in a particular way. And they have trouble learning new habits as is. So, like, I don't fault them, especially because, outside of streams, especially, I see them trying. Honestly, when we're in streams going, times can get stressful. We're going off of, like, back of our head modes when it comes to talking. It's not the forefront of our mind. And again, essentially 26 years, people knew me with different pronouns and a different name. And even just the fact that they use the correct name now, and I mean, it's really two people in particular, one of which has not shown up on streams in a long time, and one of which shows up on streams very often. And listen, they're family. I've grown up around them. I know their behavior and nature, and there is no ill will towards them. It is not done in malice, essentially. Outside of that, sometimes there will be people in stream that are friends of other people that are in stream, and again, they don't know the full situation sometimes. And so they'll use usually the correct name because, again, it's plastered everywhere now. But wrong pronouns because of pronouns that other people use. Plus, let's be honest, I have a very masculine voice. It is something I want to work on. I've had 7 months to do it, or nearly 7 months to do it, while I've been out on back stuff happening. But one, I didn't know it would take this long for the back stuff to be fixed, and two, I'm still not out at my day job. And if I were to start voice training, I would not be able to get out of the voice. I'm speaking from experience. The one time I tried voice training for about a week, and I had a lot of confused looks from people at work because I could not turn it off. So I stopped. And if I were to go back to work, I wouldn't want to out myself in that way until I'm ready. But yeah, I get that it can be difficult for also new people meeting me that aren't commonly in queer spaces, to get pronouns correctly and to, I mean, thankfully, if you don't know my old name, congratulations, you only know me by by Melody. You cannot misname me. I'm fine with the nickname Mel, as you guys can probably tell, again, from streams with other people. But yeah, why am I going through all this? Today's Transgender Day of Visibility. It's also Easter, and some people are throwing a hubbub that some people are celebrating and acknowledging Transgender Day of Visibility on Easter. And here's my 2 cents on that. One, Transgender Day of Visibility is always March 31st. It just so happened that Easter fell on the same day. Easter changes every year. And to the people specifically saying, whatever day Easter falls on, you only celebrate Easter. Dude, not everyone is celebrating the same religion as you, and not everyone that celebrates Easter does it from a religious point of view. A lot of people just like chocolate and egg hunting and Easter aesthetics. Yeah. Have a happy Ash Wednesday, but also, that is just the dumbest shit I've heard. Like, so many holidays. Okay, I will give you only celebrate Easter if you can accept in December only celebrate Hanukkah and Kwanzaa when those come up. Also during the Christmas season, no celebrating Christmas if Hanukkah or Kwanzaa is happening during that. You stupid. You're stupid. And educate yourself. Anyways, I don't want to be super negative, but Jesus Christ, the idiocracy that's been coming out of the seams today is just like, maybe it's just the US, but at this point I haven't seen it just be the US, but specifically with the US, it is very disheartening to see blatant disregard at one of the founding pillars of our nation being uh, disregard of it, essentially, of separation between church and state, and trying to make the U.S. a Christian state, which arguably we've struggled with since the founding of the nation, but since prior to the founding of the nation. But still, just like, no, trying to hide it at this point. Anyways, again, I'm not trying to be political, because guess what? One's identity should not be inherently political. Okay, what else? So it's Trans Day of Visibility, and I've not really gone on record too much to talk about my transness. I will give a brief history here of shit that has happened here. So it was, I'll do a timeline a bit of discovering shit recently, and then maybe a bit more broadly. I don't want to take too long for this today. But essentially, back in 2021, as happens every few months for people I follow, apparently, a creator I follow came out as trans. And that's not new to me. That's happened multiple times over the years, to the point where, man, I have a radar. But no, but when I've seen prior stories, usually it's been of non-binary people prior to this point, and which is not my personal experience, and it's been people not being blatant and telling their stories, but being very metaphoric and abstract up to this point. So this video comes out in 2021, and I watch it, and this person prior had come out as non-binary, and then specifically gender fluid, and then they went into their whole spiel and gave, did their whole explanations of stuff. I don't want to. Here's the thing in the trans community. I don't want to necessarily name the person, because if anyone watches this that is overtly negative to the experience, I don't want them then backtracking to this person and harassing them as well for also just existing. Which fucking sucks. I wish I could just say the video in the artist's name. But essentially they clarified some things and went through why they had identified as gender fluid. It was either gender fluid or bigender. I think it might have been bigender. I can't remember the exact thing. But do you know when something resonates with you, the point where you realize that you have subconsciously thought in a particular way for years on end, and someone points a spotlight on it for themselves, but it's such it resonates so much that you that aspect of you starts to shine with the spotlight as well. That's what started to happen with that video. When I watched that video, and I kind of just ruminated on it for a bit, and about a week after it came out, I showed it to my spouse. So I was just like, look at this crazy thing, haha. And I watched it again with my spouse, and the second time watching it, I was like, yeah, no, this is just resonating too fucking much. And so I got into really thinking about everything and internally exploring stuff. And then Thanksgiving of 2021, I let my spouse know that I was struggling, but not in a necessarily bad way, but struggling with gender stuff, and wanting to explore gender stuff. And my spouse was very supportive. They are in the queer community themselves. That is the extent that I will say that without permission. But you know, our marriage was never a worry. I felt very safe to let them know our marriage wouldn't be in jeopardy due to it. My punctuation in this sentencing is weird. I felt very safe letting them know, period. There was never a worry that our marriage was in jeopardy. Prior to me letting them know, after letting them know, all that stuff. And, always confirm with your significant other that this isn't a problem, and they confirm, so we're good, right? And then for about, here's the fucked up part. So I started exploring this again and am like finally open-ish about it late November 2021. This was right after I had so there was a weird period at the end of October, which I think is when the video initially came out, that this stuff was like subconsciously being explored after the first time I watched it. And I had done a trip to visit friends and family in a different state. And I felt very uncomfortable that entire time prior to me accepting myself because of the reasons that I was not accepting myself. And then I did finally accept myself, or was in the process of doing so. And then I would visit my family locally, and it would be a massive struggle again, but I know why now. In streaming perspective, though, that's what I wanted to get at. This all was happening when the Pokemon Diamond or Brilliant Diamond playthrough started. So as you may have noticed, and I think that's the first time at the very end of that playthrough that I mention all of this stuff. Well, not all this stuff, but like that I am trans. But we start that playthrough as I'm subconsciously dealing with all this, and then by I think part 3 of that playthrough, it's no longer subconscious and I'm struggling with it, and at some point it gets to where I can't play the game anymore because it's using my former name and they use a lot of pronouns, and I know it's dumb, but imagine yourself being called by the opposite, if you're not non-binary, by the opposite pronouns. If you're a he, imagine being called she all the fucking time. If you're a she, imagine being called he all the fucking time. It's not great. And so that was happening in the game. And I couldn't continue, and I stopped playing, and I stopped streaming, and it became a big problem. And I was just wanting to stop all that and focus solely on real life stuff. When I would visit family locally during this time, it would be a struggle because once you accept things about yourself, those tiny bits that hurt a little bit become a lot. So names, gendered nicknames, um, all that stuff that used to feel slightly uncomfortable, massive amounts of discomfort now. So that was happening, and it was very apparent to my parents that I was struggling with something. And unfortunately, my parents aren't the kind of people where I say, yes, I'm dealing with something, and I will tell you when I am ready to tell you. They can't accept that. I love them, but they if you say you're struggling, they need to know with what. And so thankfully I was able to tell them, listen, we will talk after Christmas. Here's a week. I don't think it was quite a week after. I think it was like 2 days after Christmas. I'm like, I want one more not potentially normal Christmas, you know. I want one more potentially normal Christmas with everyone. And we do that, and it's a struggle. And I let them know, hey, there's times where I may need to separate myself, and there were at least 2 times where I needed to do that. But overall, it wasn't too bad. And then a few days later, I don't remember exactly if it was 2 days or something. It was the Thursday after. That's all I remember. But when that happened, I would go to a diner to talk to my mom, and let her know. And I had planned on letting her know in person verbally, but the diner got really busy, and I had contemplated not being able to do it, so I wrote a coming out letter. I'm not going to read it here. I will let you know it started with... This isn't even true, because, again, I'm bi, but I was not accepting that part yet. That came way later. But I was like, Mom, you always asked me growing up if I was... Or you had asked me a few times growing up if I was gay, and I always said no, and if I was, I would let you know. I just need to let you know that I'm a lesbian. And then I went into the whole trans stuff. But I was just like, if I'm going to start this, I need to do it with a joke. And thankfully, that was very well received. And again, not even true. Not even true. Bisexual. And even at the time, wasn't true. Like, I always have known... I used to say I was... emotionally or romantically bi, or pan specifically, because I was like, gender doesn't matter when it comes to love. And I still kind of believe that. For obviously, I believe that is the case for certain people, but in terms of myself, like, my attraction is definitely specified by gender, and that goes for like every person I've met, like men, women, several different versions of non-binary, you know. Like, I have a type when it comes to agendered people. I have a type when it comes to gender fluid people. I have a type when it comes to, like, it is... bi is multiple. Anyways, that isn't the discussion for today. But I write the coming out letter, and I give it to my mom, and I say, please read it when you get home. And I knew once I let my mom know that I would have to let the rest of my family know, and if I let my family know, I'll need to let my close friends know. So I had scheduled messages. I think I used Telegram, text message, and Facebook Messenger. And Telegram and text message, I was able to do scheduled text. So I did that before going to the food place. And then for Facebook Messenger, I had to sit there. I had 2 different messages, one for like 2 specific people and then one for everyone else. And had to, after this meeting with my mom, while I'm bawling my eyes out a little bit and very stressed out, I send those messages to my friends and family through there. And the texts and the telegrams happened while I was in the meeting with my mom. And I got responses back from family. Those were for family members. And it was overwhelmingly positive, which was very relieving. And then I drove home and got a email from my mom by the time I got home. And she later let me know she wasn't able to wait until she got home. She read it in the parking lot. But I had also, by that point, gotten responses from my friends, which most of it was overwhelmingly positive. There was one friend who is very religious and was very much like, I may not, like this thing, but I don't even remember exactly how they phrased it. But it wasn't dismissive of my identity, but it wasn't fully like on board with it. But again, I have not talked to that person in a while, and have had other issues with them in the past. Anyways, so that happened. And then I read the email from my mom, and it's overwhelmingly positive as well. And she brought up that this made a lot of sense with a lot of the shit I struggled with growing up. So now I want to give some clarification off of what I said, a spotlight on something you've known subconsciously but failed to say on the surface, right? What I mean by that is, in that video, the way they expressed their bigenderness or gender fluidity, I can't remember exactly, was that the reason they had come out like that is they felt like the opposite gender, but felt more comfortable, not more comfortable, felt less, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, less burdening to people that knew them prior to just stay with the gender that they knew them as. And that people use egg metaphors. But yeah, that cracked the shell, essentially. I was like, oh, fuck. Because since I was like 6 or 7 is the earliest I can remember. I said that about myself, of internally and never externally, because again, I didn't want to burden anyone. I didn't want to be uncomfortable about people trying to understand me. I just wanted to try to be true to myself while making everyone around me comfortable. And so internally I was like, okay, well, part of me, when I was a kid, part of me is a girl, but everyone tells me I'm a boy. Everyone knows me as a boy. So obviously I'm also a boy. And that's just how I internalized it up until puberty. And then puberty happened, and like it went further back into the background, and I was like, I was just a weird kid, even though I still believed it. And then like it would come down, like, sometimes people will ask those metaphorical questions of like, what would you do for superpower, or what would you your 3 genie wishes, right? And either way, I would always pick shapeshifting. And I was like, well, the scenario is I would be able to live my life out as a woman, but then when I go to meet family, I could go back to my old body, and they won't ever know. Um, fucking egg. Anyways, so seeing that in that video, that cracked the shell, and yeah, it was undeniable at that point, to myself. And over the few months after coming out, family members would start to recall, like, at the time everyone was very surprised because, again, I was not external about these feelings. I was a very internalized kid. I did not, my to this day, people will still say they struggle to get me gifts because they don't know my interest in all this stuff. It's like, even my closest family members don't know much more other than it's like, I like some anime, I like Pokemon, I like Mega Man, and I like Halo, and that's like all they know about me. They don't know the bands I like. They don't know my interests outside of those things. Oh, and they know I like Sonic. They don't know my interests outside of those things. They probably don't even know what books I've read. Harry Potter is a thing that I've had to get after people for trying to get me shit post coming out. Which, like, I was a lot more subtle originally, but especially over these past few months, no. Fuck anyone who's still in that fandom. Fuck anyone who's on the internet and knows the situation and is still in that fandom. Anyways, what was I going on about? Oh yeah, so I was a very internalized kid. So at first everyone was like, this is a shock. We saw no signs. And then as months went on, people were like, no, yeah, there were some pretty clear fucking signs. And which was very validating. But yeah, like I used to, here's the thing. I'm the youngest of 4. And for a long time, I did not have privacy in my household, partially due to how my family was growing up, partially due to my own insecurities growing up. Like, I never felt super safe it wasn't claustrophobia, but I never felt super safe in a closed off room. And so being in my own room alone kind of thing was a bit of a concern for me, so I would go into like the living room and stuff. And then partially due to poverty circumstances, housing crisis in 2008 really fucked up my family, and so I just didn't have a room from like 14, a little bit before 14 to 17, somewhere in there, like nearly 3 years during some of the most informative years that I would have. I just didn't have any privacy. During the time that I was dealing with gender shit the most, in my teen years. And so, sorry, the music has confused me now. It's too upbeat, but I can't change the track. I could take the headphones off. What was I going on about? Internalized all my stuff. Oh, okay, so yeah. I don't remember what I was going on about. Other than, again, it was very affirming once people were able to recognize things. And again, some family members, it was a lot sooner than others because they were a lot closer in proximity. That's what I was trying to say. But yeah, so growing up, some of the things would be waiting for the 5 other people in my house to leave the house for me to be able to explore things gender-wise, and then immediately rushing to get all that stuff put away and gone in order to not get caught, to making accounts online where I was again a kid at the time, so a girl, in stuff like Gaia Online, where I would roleplay as that, and for Cadia, in which, yes, I am also, I'm 3.5 levels of queer. I'm trans. I'm bi. I'm a third level that I'm not comfortable currently talking about publicly. And the half is I'm a furry. No, I currently don't have a fursona on here. I don't know that I would. We're not gonna get into that whole thing. It's like, I don't know, furry light. I don't know. I've had a fursona since I was like a 9. Anyways, what are we talking about? Oh yeah, so for Katia, Gaia Online, I am VU. I think even Neopets, which really should have been a sign, because Neopets doesn't fucking, like, you don't have a personal avatar. You can't make the excuse I made a girl Neopets account just, because of design reasons or graphics, like wanting to try out different styles or clothes and that kind of stuff. Like, you can't argue that with Neopets. And then in like, I will mention this in a future thing, but when it came to Pokemon games, I would reset my Pokemon games to play as a girl for like 2 hours without saving, and then I would restart, and if I didn't fuck up, then I had my old save. If I did fuck up, I would just restart as a dude and just be like, oh man, my memory got wiped, because I would play these games around my family and with my family. And so that happened with Pokemon, that happened with Xbox Avatar stuff. Like I told my family, oh yeah, this is my Japanese, my brothers that played Xbox with me. Oh yeah, this is my Japanese account so that I can get Japanese games, which I never bought any Japanese games. And yeah, it just gave me a default name and avatar, and it'd be confusing to change it. It was not confusing to change it. I made the name myself. I made the avatar myself. And I would play it with that offline, and I would be like, oh, there's no point to add me as a friend on that account because I'm not using that account. It's purely just to make purchases. No, I would play Xbox Avatar games when people weren't around, or when people were asleep. But again, not much privacy, so I would like erase all this stuff or hide all this stuff, and I didn't have a lot of ways of exploring that freely growing up. And it wouldn't be until until my parents moved out of the house, and then I eventually moved out of living with my brother and his fiance, and with my partner at the time. I just realized there's not a gender neutral equivalent of boyfriend, girlfriend. Them friend. I don't know. But moved in with them along with their former roommate and her boyfriend, who was also a coworker of mine. It's a whole thing, but once I was in the relationship with my partner, who is now my spouse, and once I was out of the house or away from my family, I felt a lot more secure in exploring myself. And so again, the thoughts of, well, part of me is now as an adult, a woman. But again, going back to the the teen years thinking of, no, that's crazy thoughts. And trying to push us down. It's like, okay, well, maybe I'm just feminine. And so I would explore my femininity through clothing and experimenting with other related things. And it never felt really comfy. And so I stopped, and I was like, okay. So I'm not super feminine. I'm not hyper masculine or anything. I do not do a body build. I do not like the sports. I do not drink the beer. I don't give a shit about motorcycles. Like the most masculine thing I do is I play first person shooters, which all genders do. And dude, okay, another affirming fucking thing. One of those fucking, and this is weird affirming, which there's like, talk to any trans person, they have constant weird affirming thing. But when I was like 15, 14 or 15, I think it was December 09, so 14, we went over to some friend's house, and their cousin was there, and she was like an legitimately MLG Halo player. She had done mini tournaments, and won mini tournaments, and she was like, I can take you all on and beat the shit out of you. And I'm like, okay, let's do this. And so it was like me, my brother, and I think our cousin was online, and so he came online too over Xbox Live, and it was 3v1, and she wiped the floor with us. And my brother was a little peeved. My cousin was like, this is weird. And I was just like super jazzed that a girl kicked my ass. Don't read into that. That is not a thing for me. But I was just like, yes, go off. Fucking prove that it's not a male dominated, or shouldn't be male dominated area. It should be all genders. And it's just like, man, you really cared about that kind of stuff prior to knowing yourself. And it's like, yeah, I was. And I was always invested more in like the women's perspective on relationships. And again, part of the reason why I didn't accept that I was bi is because anytime that I imagined myself in a relationship, it was me as a guy. And so me in that scenario, everything was bad. Everything was gross. But women are great. All right. And so like, no matter what, women, yes. But, and again, romantically, it was whatever, which should have been a fucking sign. Though, to be fair, romantic attraction, physical attraction, and sexual attraction, all separate versions of attraction. Okay. Anyways. But, what was, oh shit, what was I didn't accept, oh, yeah, so I would see myself as a dude in those scenarios, and dude me with dude, no. Dude me with anyone, really, no. But did with women because, and some non-binary people, because, you know, I was able to focus on them in the relationship, not solely on them and me, right? And so after I come out as trans, it's like recontextualizing, and it's like, oh no, I'm like can be attracted to anyone, depending on like types and stuff. So like, yeah, it was just recontextualizing it in my head. I did have some people tell me that it was hormones that changed my sexuality, and it's like, no. Do you remember when I was acting this way around this guy? And I was like, oh yeah, no, you were super fucking flirting. And I was like, yeah, and I didn't even fucking realize. Anyways, but yeah, So let's see. That was that. I don't remember everything. I don't remember how I got on that tangent. But yeah, so I've still been kind of shy about mentioning it because, again, I don't pass. I don't pass visually, verbally, any which way. And I feel a bit self conscious when I do come out and I try doing more feminine voices, especially when my nose is stuffed, because, again, one, it doesn't sound super feminine to me internally, and two, people will I feel like people will think I'm just putting on a voice, which to a degree I am, but this is like a range that I'm able to do comfortably without really thinking about it, and is kind of the range that I got myself into, where people were starting to contemplate what the fuck was going on when I was at work. Anyways, right now it does take a little bit to get into that, but as you can tell from voices that I do, especially in Pokemon games, like I have practiced some fem. Oh, dude, one of my nostrils is fucking close. Anyways, was I trying to go through experiences growing up? I don't want to go too much into that, but yeah, I'm working on trying to be more upfront about it and less uncomfortable about it. It's still something I'm working on. What fucking sucks is... Sorry, a beep just happened. What fucking sucks is that, like, the entire plan was that in November of last year I was going to start getting laser, and I would get laser for about 6 months, and the hope was that the treatments in that time would be enough to where my facial hair would be practically non-existent, and then I could start voice training and come out at work, and by now potentially be out at work and out as myself and not have to feel as self-conscious about all this stuff. And then September, before the laser, my fucking back shit happened. And so all that progress has been put on hold. And because of all the medical bills, we'll probably be on hold for at least another year. And it fucking sucks. Let's see, what else? So timeline-wise, I start taking hormones in February, actually like 2 days before I get the injury that would result in my back pain now. And when I learned that I was going to be able to get on hormones, firstly, very terrifying, because before you're on hormones, you're like not sure if this is still all in your head. And I had been out for 2 months at that point, out for 3 months with my spouse, but to everyone else for 2 months at that point. And it's like, there's no putting this genie back in the bottle, probably, but if there's definitely a no going back point, it's hormones. And my doctors were like, no, you can be able to stop whenever you want. And if I was not being pushed to take them. Honestly, they started me on a low dose and all this because they did not believe I was trans. They pretty blatantly told me, you sound like you might be non-binary and that you might be potentially more agendered, which is not fucking true, and I don't know what the fuck they were seeing, but like, anyways, so they weren't really wanting to give hormones, but I'm in a state where it has informed consent, and I gave informed consent, and so they started me on a very low dose of hormones, and it's not as soon, but like 2 weeks after I started as soon as I started taking them, it was very apparent to me how important it was to me to do them, because I have fucked up with medications all the way up until that point with forgetting stuff and being like, I don't actually need that and all this stuff. And this was the first time no, I'm taking it on the exact time that I need to be doing it for the exact amount of duration that I need to be doing it, and like all this stuff. Because I start with dissolving pills, so it's like they're going under my tongue, 15 minutes, cannot talk, yada yada. No food, no drink while I'm doing that, all that fun stuff. And by 2 weeks in, it was like, no, this is one, trans, two, need more of this, but probably because I'm feeling the changes, but it's not fully where I'd like to be. And when we got my blood tests, it showed that my testosterone hadn't dropped nearly that much, and my E levels had only gone up a little bit. And again, this is doctors I don't go to anymore, but they were like, well, these are the E levels we think you would be comfortable at, and your testosterone's good at where we think it is. And I'm like, I've researched what other trans people get and all this stuff, and this is like less than half. And it's like, I feel like you guys still just don't believe that I'm trans. And they were very surprised when I was like, all the benefits that are happening, super positive, great, want more. And they were very much like, oh, we didn't expect this outcome. But they begrudgingly upped my dosage, and everything went better. I eventually moved to shots, which worked for a while, but like it was more stable than pills for me. But I would get a lot of pain from doing it, even though it was once a week, because I probably also have fibromyalgia. My mom has it. Had it when she had me. And so it's highly likely, based off of a lot of symptoms that I've expressed that I experienced and thought were normal everyday things, and everyone else says no, but my mom's like, my doctors told me that's my fibro. And I'm like, fuck. So anyways, part of that is needles fucking suck. And so I would like not pass out, but all my energy would be drained, and I would get in severe pain after each shot. And it's just like, I'm gonna do my shot in the morning, and the rest of the day I'm not gonna be able to do anything. And people thought I was crazy, and then they saw me and they're like, oh fuck. Anyways, so I'm getting really tired, and we gotta wrap this up. I do shots for a while. I hear about patches, and I hear so many people say patches are like the least effective, yada yada yada, because they are the lowest amount of dose. And I'm like, I don't care, let me try them. Patches were perfect for me. They stabilize everything. They actually have been giving me more E than the shots were. I've been very susceptible to them. We got me on the right dosage and all this stuff after about a year. And I've been on hormones ever since. But timeline for streaming, when I learned that I was going to be on hormones and I felt like I couldn't put the genie back on the bottle, is when I'm like, okay, I can't stream. I'm physically unable to stream at this point, because it was February and I was like, I haven't come out. I don't think I can come out. And I had learned by this point that streaming, and it still very much is, but it's actually been a life-saving thing for me during the past few months. But streaming I use as a distraction from focusing internally on stuff myself. So why I didn't figure a lot of this shit out during the pandemic, I was streaming a lot during the pandemic. So 2019 to 2021, I was streaming a lot. And then 2022, you may have noticed I barely streamed, because I was actually working on myself. And then, so I was starting to realize that in 2022. So I was like, I'm going to stop streaming. And if I do ever come back, it'll be on a different channel. It was not on a different channel. But so I decided to do a final stream, which I've mentioned this a few times. And I had a few people in on that final stream. Not on the stream, but in the chat and watching. And it was a tier list of every game I had played on stream to that point, and I did it, and it was fun. But and people enjoyed it, and I didn't explain why it was my final stream while I was doing the tier list. It takes me like 2.5 hours to do the tier list. And then I say that I'm going to explain why. Because if I can't come out and be honest with this in what's going to be potentially my last time on this channel, how am I ever going to come out to people that it actually matters to? And so I let everyone know I'm trans, and my name and pronouns and how long I've been dealing with it and transitioning, and that I was going to be on hormones soon. And I thanked everyone, specifically on people that had accepted me and people who had helped with stream and all this stuff. And while I was doing all that, several people left watching, which whatever, but also a couple people were being disgusting in the chat. I will say, to those of you who followed me back in the day and still follow me now, and we're actually, there was at least 2 of you that were in that final stream and watched my coming out, and as embarrassing as it was, and still pop in and talk every once in a while. I appreciate the fuck out of you guys. It means a lot, even if I haven't verbalized it. But yeah, so I do all that, and I just leave that up, and I quit Twitch for, it was from like February to like June or July, and then I was just like, look, I've been working on myself. I still have a desire to stream, and so I think I come back with like Vanquish or Knights of the Round, and then I think Vanquish. It was just a game that I wanted to play on stream even before all this shit. So I finally do, and then I get back into streaming, and I'm like, okay, we stopped halfway through Pokemon Diamond. What if I trade all my Pokemon, now that Pokemon Home's out, what if I trade all my Pokemon to Home? Make another profile. Well, I had another profile. I had a McFox profile that I used for Let's Go Pikachu, our playthrough of Let's Go Pikachu. So I'm like, what if I use that profile, make an identical name, and have the party as identical as I can, and I race through the game, and I get to the exact square we stopped at, and then I start up, but I am the girl trainer, and I have my new name. And so I do that. I trade my Pokemon from one save to the other save, use them to power my way through to the same spot. Got there in the original playthrough, I think it was like 14 hours, but in this one I got there in like 8 hours. I leave the Switch on and I set a 6-hour timer, and it goes off, and I have like 30 seconds to wait, and I wait those 30 seconds, and I save, and I turn it off, and then I fucking start up the game and act like nothing fucking happened. And I was able to finish the playthrough, and it's been fucking, it was great, because it was my name, it was my correct pronouns, and it was still my team that I cared about. That's the thing, is like, I have probably over 1,000 Pokemon that have my dead name as the original trainer. And it sucks to see that, but at the same time, like, a name is just a name. The experiences I've had with those Pokemon are more important. Anyways, so I do that, and that's also, spoiler alert, part of the reason why I haven't played Legends Arceus on here is because that was the first game where I was really I really got immersed personally, and like correct gender, and was really just trying shit out dress up wise and experiencing shit in that way. And so like it was a very personal game. I still haven't beaten it, and I do still plan on playing that on stream at some point. But that is why. And I think I started it before I came back to streaming. But yeah. Other than that, I don't have much else that I want to say on it today. It's not a choice to be trans. It is a choice to accept who you are. As for who I am, my name is... We'll leave the last name out. My name is Melody Rhyme. I guess you can go with Melody Rhyme McFox. Haha. I've been trans since I was born, and have accepted myself for the past 2 years and 4 months. I've been on hormones for the last 2 years and 1 month. Pronouns she, her, or they, them. Go by Mel as well. That's the one thing I didn't get into is names. God, there were so many over the years when I was younger, but of actual ones that I tried out Cassidy, and that just didn't, like, it works to a degree, but then I was trying to also do the nickname Cassie, which is too close to my mom's name, and I hate it. Cassidy, also, like, it's a name that I like, but it's not a name that I feel is me. And Melody is that. Melody is very much that. And so the first name I ever went by was Rachel. We're not going to go with that. That's a whole other thing when I was like 8. But aside from that, like, the first one that I used for a long period of time was Mai, which I believe is after My Valentine from Yu-Gi-Oh! But that's where I'm like, okay, I gotta have an M name because I used that for years. I love music. Genuinely, life is a song kind of asshole I am. I've seen the name Melody a few times. But it also derives a bit from Rhyme, which I was originally not going to include in part of my name, but Rhyme is an important character to me from the game The World Ends With You. Very much a, like, character that growing up I very closely identified with, and so I was like, okay, well, Rhyme, musical name, synonyms for rhyme, well, not exactly synonyms, but harmony, no, melody. And then I had that on one side, and then on the other side I had April, which was a name, again, growing up, that I would use occasionally, and also one that I was like, in my teen years, I was like, well, if I had been born a girl, I would have wanted to go with April. But I put those names by a picture of myself, and I was like, no, Melody. Which my spouse was very much like, yeah, I hate the name April. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then I told my mom eventually that April was a possibility, and she was like, that's what we were going to name you if you were born a girl. And I was like, fuck. But I've published things under Melody now. I still really like Melody. I did debate doing Melody April, or April Melody. And I wouldn't be fully opposed to being April, but my spouse is very much like, fucking, I will divorce you. They didn't say that, but they hate month names, and like, I don't get that. April's a good name. March is a good name. That does not get used often. April, fucking fantastic. May, fantastic. I think I said one of those before, and I didn't remember which one, so I said them both again. June, love that name. I have met a couple Julys. That is a bit weird. I also met a September once. That one's weird. To be fair, yeah, just like March through July. March through June is good. July, but at least somewhat understandable. And then seasons, fantastic. Spring is a good non-binary name. Though people will probably think you mean like a coil. Summer, awesome name. Autumn, really good name. Winter's not. Well, winter, again, as a non-binary name. Anyways, I was wanting to end on me being like, this is who I am. And then I got into a tangent, which is truly who I am. But yeah, we may stream tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoy this. If you have any fucking problems with the fact that I'm trans, just fucking leave. I don't care. Don't care if you have an issue with it. It's who I am. I should be able to talk about it. And fuck off if you have a problem. And if you don't, cool, stick around. Also, if you're questioning shit, or struggling, one, we all struggled to be able to accept ourselves. Not a single one of us ever had it easy prior to it. And that's not saying that you shouldn't be experiencing what you're experiencing. What I'm saying is, we get it. We're sorry that it's happening to you, of where you're struggling, but it gets better. And there are other people out there that have experienced what you're experiencing and can help you through talking and stuff. You just got to find them. And also, there's plenty of resources online, specifically with gender stuff. I would argue looking up the Gender Dysphoria Bible, I think is what it's called, which was very eye-opening as well. And when it comes to sexuality, imagine just yourself with other people, which is what I would always do. 2, imagine yourself as a separate gender with other people and see if that affects it. And then if you can't imagine yourself with anyone, look into ace stuff. I don't know. Anyways, I love you guys. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will hopefully see you tomorrow, or I'll be continuing my off-stream recordings for the surgery stuff, which has been really good. I can't wait for you guys to see this shit. But I will see you soon. Later.